Hey everyone, 9.5 has been out for a few days now, so let's check out what's cooking in Korea and what we can start to use if you aren't already a little bit ahead of the meta. Someone always puts timestamps down below, and I mean always, like I guarantee you someone has, so you can check that out if you'd like to, but we've got some definite underrated ones and ones you probably won't expect. There is one that actually caught me off guard, and I stalk Koreans for a living pretty much, right? So Akali is 100% back this patch, not really as a mid laner anymore, but definitely as a top laner. The new Conqueror is amazing on her, but because she was so weak as a champion, we didn't really realize, I guess, until now. There were buffs in 9.5. They were making her passive better, her shroud way better, only needing to exit once to extend the duration to the maximum limit instead of having to exit 6 times. Her E also does more damage, her ultimate has a lower cooldown, so that is why she is stronger. And being melee, she can use Conqueror with the 8-second stack. She has a ton of AP from it, true damage, and some healing, which she also lost partly in her nerfs. Now, there are 2 builds here. So the usual Gunblade Morello AP one that we know and love, that is really good healing and a burst, and that still works fine. The part that actually caught me off guard is the other one. So, well, Bruiser Akali is now a thing in Korea apparently. This is Trinity Force paired with Asterix into a death stance most of the time. She has been out a while now, and we always build AP, so most people have forgotten that her passive, her Q, her E, even her ultimate all have AD ratios. In fact, her E is solely an AD ratio, and the rest are strong. They're high AD ratios. They are good. This makes her more of a duelist. She ducks in and out with her Sheen procs and stuff. She is tanky. She heals with death stance eventually as well. So she has high base damage, builds health, has a shield, and still has high mobility and her stealth. They also normally get a Tiamat in the lane phase for the extra pushing power, but you'd be surprised how much stronger she is in lane with this setup as a bruiser with a Trinity Force. The thing is, if this catches on, it will probably get nerfed because it is very strong, but it's, how do I put it? Like, it's not fun to play against because she kills you but doesn't die very fast at all because she's kind of building tank. It's kind of like an Aurelia, gets to a similar tanky level as that, but is very mobile and has her stealth to back her up. But either way, AP or bruiser, whichever you want to play, she's a very good top lane champion, again with Conqueror, where she can brawl other champions. Nico was obviously going to get a spot in this video because she is absolutely insane, and before this patch was pretty bad. We are seeing Nico in every single role at the moment, but first let's look at one of them that doesn't get as much attention from people, which is support. She functions basically like a Zarya now, a root, a very long one by the way, a follow-up AoE damage with her Q, and most will actually max their Q into E. Then she has her AoE ultimate that can stun people and supply a huge amount of damage and setup. Mostly it is Arcane Comet as your keystone and going for damage with your poke build, but you can also run Aftershock as well, which if you want to, which will proc from her E and also make her very tanky as she walks forward with her ultimate. This has really come up again because she can now get the empowered root by just hitting one minion first, so it's way easier to set up fights and lock the enemy bot lane in place, whether it's for a gank or a 2v2 fight. The possibly more OP version though is the damage build. Now you can play her AP if you want to, but most of the people are going to play her like this with AD. This is the Pressy attack, the Rage Blade, the Blade the Ring King build that plays around her W on hit damage. The W is a 3-hit passive, so with Rage Blade that turns into 2 hits, basically working the same way as Vayne Silver Bolts. This is a max W build. It's also just an auto attack build. You still have a chance to like root with your E for ages and then keep them there while you smack them. That's kind of the idea. You do really silly damage with this. You shred towers because the passive works on that as well. But if you're interested in that playstyle, I'll link my proper video about her, which I released yesterday or the day before, that you can watch to get more information. Another one that had a huge amount of buffs and adjustments was Vi walking into patch 9.5, and she has shot up now to become one of the top tier junglers. Her early game is not the strongest really, but her mid game is amazing now with a much more functional ultimate. What I mean is it works a lot like Nautilus. Oh, now kind of. It does full damage to secondary targets that it hits along the way, but it also knocks them back further and for longer. The idea behind that is that when you do launch yourself into a team fight, you're impacting more than just that one person you're locked onto, so you're way more useful. Her damage is already pretty good, but she is supposedly farming faster this patch because her Q does full damage to monsters now and you max that first. So if she can farm quicker, that is more gold, more time to gank, and more impact early in arguably her weakest phase. Once she does hit like Trinity Force and Sterix, that is when she can survive a bit longer and dish out some serious damage, and that is when you kind of level up. Most go Electrocute as your keystone, but just to point out, you can also go to Aftershock if you wanted a better engage instead of better damage. You're not going to have too many bad jungle matchups in this meta either, but anybody who is a bit on the lower health side of things like a Lee Sin, you'll absolutely shred and you'll burst them down. Morgana obviously got her visual update this patch, so she is really popular, even though to be honest she was before as well, so she's definitely not a new OP like this video is. What I have noticed though that is different is people are taking her mid lane now and maxing their W to push super hard. This is also Silas's worst matchup, at least in terms of win rate, and that's important because he is definitely S-tier now after the bust on this patch. Her kit did not change massively at all. It was mostly a visual update, but something quite a lot of people missed, which is really important, was her W Tormented Shadow. The damage on that was changed. It is worse when it's placed on a higher health target, but is much better now on lower health targets with more base damage, 10% more AP ratio, which obviously is really good if you build more AP mid lane. The short version is that it already does 300 damage over 5 seconds plus 80% of your AP. That is already quite a lot, and that's not factoring the damage amp from missing health. It was buffed to increase up to 170% more based on their missing health instead of increasing just by 50%. I'm not going to work this out myself, but the wiki has the maximum damage at 810 base plus 216% of your AP. Obviously, it's not going to be quite that much of a boost because the target would basically have to be dead to get that high, but it's still increased by over 100% at 40% health left. When you max your W and you put that underneath somebody who is already hurt, maybe from your Q or from your ultimate or from somebody else with some AP built, you actually do so much damage now. You also now gain move speed towards somebody shackled with your ultimate, so there is less chance for them to get away from that in the first place, but overall you're just way better suited as a mid lane pick if you want to pick her there. Moving into something different, Camille is a top laner that hasn't really had much attention recently, but has started to be played a lot more, especially at higher ranks. Conqueror is amazing on her, even after the nerfs in 9.5, and as you would expect, she gets a lot of AD, more true damage, and some healing, but it works with this kind of kiting playstyle that you have. You can fight really well with your stun, you can take your towers pretty quickly, roam as well with your ultimate and gank other lanes, but she's definitely a very underrated bruiser, fighter, whatever style champion. A lot of people actually max their E first in lane, which reduces the cooldown of it, but it also increases both the damage plus the attack speed that you gain from it if you land. Honestly, it's really hard to make a guide on this kind of pick because everybody does something a bit different depending on the game and how they want to do it. The only thing that's standard is Resolve Secondary because they take Shield Bash, and that is really strong, really good synergy on Camille. Pressy Attack is the most common, but Conqueror is winning more right now, and I see a lot of people using this at the moment. But Arcane Comet is also there for poke. I don't really see many people using that anymore. But something else is Kleptomancy, another really good choice that in matchups where you can proc it consistently, it's actually pretty overpowered. Whichever keystone you do want to use, Camille Top is being used by pros a ton who want to really carry from the top lane. Let's move into the jungle with Graves. So we got 3 AD back on this patch, and I bet you expected him back with such a huge buff, right? Probably not, but he is back with a whole different style, or kind of like an old school style of things. We were building Stormrazor for the longest time, right? That got reworked, unfortunately, so we went back to Phantom Dancer and Black Cleaver, but that wasn't really working that well. So then we started getting Ghostblade second, and that was working pretty well, but now Korea also gets a Duskblade third, so it's back to Lethality Graves. This is winning a lot of games at the moment, but he's definitely still best if you can get ahead early, get more items than everybody else, and then use that item lead to crush people. The build has moved away from being weirdly tanky with like some health and your Phantom Dancer shield while killing people still, to just bursting the crap out of them really quickly and removing them from fights. Fleet Footwork is a really good safe option for runes. Nothing else is really used in Korea that much, and they take sudden impact for even more lethality on top of that, getting them as close to 0 armor, that sweet spot, and the true damage. In Korea right now with this setup, he is doing really well against stuff like Sejuani or Kindred especially, but the rest are almost all skill matchups, honestly. Hoping you don't get screwed too hard early so you can get to your items and kill everybody. Moving back to some AD carry stuff. Now, Korea is dominated by Ezreal, Kai'Sa, Vayne, and Lucian, to be honest, but there are some others like Calista, and you guys know that I love me some Calista. Over here, we see a lot of lethal tempo and press attack. I personally run press attack, I prefer it, but over there, it's about early game dominance. So the build we're seeing all the time is Halo Blades. You gain a ton of attack speed for the first 3 attacks, which is a very fast trade. It's 3 Ren stacks, which is amazing, but for Calista, it means that you can hop more faster, a bit smoother. You've also got double healing from Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter, plus double healing from your items normally with Blade the Ruined King and a Bloodthirster shield. You're basically so difficult to kill with this setup, which is really good. And yes, your team fight is probably a tiny bit weaker than having like a lethal tempo, but your early is so much stronger. It also gives a bit more burst potential, which is something Calista seriously lacks. When you enter into a fight, you immediately get 3 attacks, and that is actually quite a bit of damage. Halo Blades isn't something 100% new, but she was buffed a few patches ago, and since then we've seen this build creeping up a lot more to the point where it's actually pretty good now. She isn't really your typical AD carry, right? But in Korea, on a good player or somebody who wants to duel a bit more, hop around, kite people, she is one of the strongest actually, especially once you've started to master her. So Silas is going to bring us back into the mid lane, where he's one of the most banned now in 9.5 and considered one of the strongest. They increase his W heal early and increase the damage and the heal ratios by 10%, and as you can imagine, that makes him even more of a nightmare. Before it was like a tank Silas build, right, with Iceborne and stuff, but this has seen a huge surge in AP Silas rather than just that tank one from before. Some still maxing their W, but maxing Q has an even higher win rate. Proto Belt is still the most common first item, but then it's Lichbane now getting a lot more attention for consistent damage, and that is winning a ton. There are quite a few different items and builds you can go for, but full AP is working out a lot more, and even after the Aftershock nerfs that we had this patch, that is still the keystone that you're going to go for. Obviously, when you proc it, you gain a ton of magic resist and armor, and when you're building full AP, that's even better. But Shield Bash also has really good synergy, plus you can pick up the heal increase from Revitalize, and then Mana Flow and Transcendence for the cooldown reduction in Sorcery. He is winning most early game now after the buffs, pretty much giving him a bit of a stronger lane phase, and then if you can get ahead, he is so hard to deal with because of that heal, which is even better now. You have to also remember though that once Silas gets to level 16, the cooldown of your ultimate goes down to 15 seconds without any cooldown reduction. Silas is a bit of a weird champion who takes a bit of getting used to, but he's probably one of the strongest champions in the game at the moment, and is getting very close to pickle ban territory as people get better with him. So that is going to wrap up our look into career for today. Thank you for watching the video until the very end, and I should be streaming right now if you want to come and say hello, so I'll chuck a link to that down below. But for now, I will leave you with the robots.